Okay, right. So we are ready to go. Welcome to the SUSE QE Tools workshop. And today, as announced, Tina would like to follow up with a topic which we already have touched one time about using a browser-based development environment. And we planned to streamline that on the experience which we had in the past. So, Tina, give it a go.
Okay, so yeah, this is about code spaces, and I'm not sure who of you has heard of it. Yeah, unfortunately, we cannot easily do a quick hands up. But yeah, this I worked on code spaces for the first time for this ticket I had to run openQA in code spaces. And this is about lowering the entry barrier for people. So if they read about openQA and hesitate to actually install something on their machine, they cannot try it out in code spaces. And you can actually get a code space with VS Code for every GitHub repository. It will just use the default container. I think it's some Ubuntu container, but you can also configure a special container here in this dev container directory, and there you can actually add a certain image and some arguments. You can also put a Docker file in there, and then you can add a link to it, but it will also appear if you click here on code. Then normally what you see is the cloning options, but if you click on code spaces, you can also click on the plus to start a code spaces instance. And also you can do new with options. Let's take a look at this. So you can actually choose which branch it should use. And if you have multiple dev container configurations. So let's try to use this link. So this will actually offer you to resume any code spaces you have been used in the past. I deleted all my code spaces, so I click on create new, and just a warning. If you create new code spaces and just abandon old ones, they will still be lying around. And especially with openQA containers, they can use a lot of space, and the space is still counting even if you have stopped the code space. And you have 15 gigabytes per month.
As a free
So
quota for, I think, open source projects. That's it.
it's a what quota?
A free quota for open source projects. So I guess on GitHub, if you would have a hidden or private repository, then it wouldn't work there. But of course, it's also a limited free offering. So I guess with some subscription, one could get longer or indefinite runtime.
Right. So you have 60 hours per month for running containers, and actually 120 hours, but the default is a 2-core container, and for 2 cores, it's it counts twice, so it's 16 hours. And 15 gigabytes storage. Okay, so let's create it, and this can, of course, take some time, although it is using a container that is already built. So here you can see the pulling. So yeah, you have to be a little bit patient while it's setting up things, and finally it will actually open a new terminal. And this is the post attach command. So this command will be run whenever you create or recreate a container, and it will start openQA Bootstrap. And what you can do is now tail the log file, and it will see that it tries to install some more new stuff into the container. And yeah, this will also take a little while, but this can be saved later when you only stop the container and start it again. But we will come to that. Yeah, so maybe meanwhile I can actually do a little quick hands up. So who of you has used code spaces already? Can you click the hands up thing? Okay, 3, 4.
That's 5.
5. Okay. Thank you. Okay, there was some pop-up, but I missed it. So it will show you when certain ports are opening, but you also have the okay, you also have the ports tab, and you can open a link. What you also can do is to actually make that link public, but be careful with that, because if you make such a link public and give that link to people, then they can click around your application, and then it will not be stopped after. So normally a container stops after you don't use it for half an hour, but if people still click around, I think it will keep open, and then they will use your time. So be careful with that. So let's open this link. Yes, Santiago?
Tina, a quick question. Do you know if the time can be overridden, like instead of half an hour, something like 30 minutes, something like 10 minutes of inactivity or something like this?
Yeah, you can do that in your settings. So there's a
Okay.
billing setting in your, yeah. So billing and plans and usage. And there you have how much you've used code spaces and how much storage you've used. Oh, yeah. Okay, and now we see an openQA instance without installing anything on your machine. I can log in. And of course, yeah, it's empty for now. But it's usable. And let's try. So I'm going back to the terminal. Actually, yeah, I'm tailing the log here, so I will create a new terminal and do an openQA clone job. So yeah, this will take a little bit because it will download the QCal image.
This job, is it was it an OpenQA test from the group 24? Yeah, okay, this.
Yeah. Mhm. And it's running a test. The repository I'm using is distri openQA. Yeah, I actually should share
So
that.
there can be many test distributions, and what most people that are in the room are aware of is Osado. That is also in the OS Audience scope. That's OS Audience / OS Audience Distri OpenSUSE, which are the main open lead tests. Next to that, there's OS Audience Distri example, like a very small, tiny example, which many of you will have started with when doing like first steps with OpenQA. What we use a lot within the tools team is OS Audience Distri openQA. Those are the openQA in OpenQA tests. There are also other repositories within the scope of OS Audience. Then, of course, every other OpenQA user outside the scope of OpenSUSE obviously has their own repositories, like Fedora or Debian and Alma Linux and such.
Right, and here it will install OpenQA. Of course, yeah, this
just to make it clear how impressive that is, I would say. So you're running, you just click the link on a GitHub repository that started an environment which starts OpenQA. Within that OpenQA environment, we're running an OpenQA test, and that OpenQA test is setting up OpenQA within that to run tests within.
Right. And it works, but it unfortunately, takes time. So let's just cancel this job and let's try something else out. So, right, we are in the distri openqa repository, and so we have all the test files actually here. Okay, so now we have this. And let's try it again.
Guess you can already see a message in the in the live log below.
Probably.
Yeah, it maybe has passed.
Yeah. Let me just.
Maybe while we wait, one question, or rather, more to pick our brains. There is I know that with code spaces you can share.
Oh. Yeah, I did actually make a mistake. Sorry, I would just a second. So actually, I have to do this here, case dir equals current directory. So in the current directory, I have the git checkout, and to actually let my instance know that it shouldn't use GitHub, but the local Git directory, I have to use this one, and then we will see my message.
Right, so you were just running the upstream reference of the test distribution, which is like the upstream repository, not your.
Yeah. Okay, Santi?
Yep. Wait a second. Yes. Um, More something to pick our brains. We have this. So with the code spaces, you have also the chance to set up some plugins for Visual Studio Code. And given that is more or less popular, for quite some time, I've had the feeling that we should work on extending the different editors that we use, and that would include obviously Visual Studio Code. Um, I wonder if we could use at least this opportunity to kind of get started there in terms of, I don't know, hey, there is this plugin, or even a plugin that is very specific for writing tests in openQA.
Okay, just short. So you can see my message here. So it's a proof that it works. Yeah, we could also run actually open CLI schedule command. I didn't completely understand your suggestion.
So the suggestion. So right now we have, for instance, if I'm writing code in Perl, I can have some Vim plugins that will allow me to not only have code snippets, but also some level of code completion or support for LSPs. So what I'm thinking is that maybe we should also start to think to add that kind of support for writing tests or openQA stuff.
Yes,
Like Vim plugins
we
and
can.
stuff like this.
Thank you, Mama. We can do that.
Yes.
Of course.
So when I'm typing record info, you can already see that it does some completion, right?
Yep.
And there are already so this code spaces thing offers to actually load more plugins in here. So yeah, there are a lot of options. And in this container, there is no Perl tidy installed, for example, but actually we want to add that. So it doesn't just use the single instance container with no development tools, but it would actually offer some of the tools additionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I could see already, because you're offering what this offers is an OpenQA instance which you can use for your own development of openQA, just as well as openQA tests. But then you might want a different tool set for each of those, and maybe we don't want to pull in all the dependencies and provide all that environment, because it just takes long to bootstrap that. If you just want to, let's say, if you just want to interact with a remote OpenQA instance, so maybe you just need Perl tidy. But if you want to develop OpenQA, maybe you don't need all the dependencies of Osado, but you want different tooling to actually execute OpenQA unit tests. So I'm thinking maybe we need customized environments for each of those, but definitely, let's say, the very first steps for a newcomer would be contributing to, more likely to test. So I think it makes more sense to offer more help in that scope rather than for the actual core developers of OpenQA, because maybe then you already can help yourself a bit better, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
In previous Friday call about CodeSpace, there was an example as pre-configure VS Code in CodeSpaces for Perl. Yeah, I think Michele did that talk. And yeah, this so Michele's talk focused more on on the development, on editing test files and stuff. And yeah, the focus here is just run the VS, run the code space and start up an instance, and you can already see it working. And yeah, we can improve things in the future, like Ollie just said.
I think the most important message is that it was already possible to work with openQA, regardless if it's a own instance that you spawn as well as a remote instance from a browser environment. Let's say maybe, a tablet, computer, Chromebook and such. You don't need the terminal, and you made it even more convenient. And we are demonstrating here different ways how to use it and how to approach it. And it became a single-click solution effectively.
Right. Not sure why it doesn't actually schedule the next test. So there are actually still some limitations. So for example, I haven't installed the inline module, so that's an optional dependency for us. So it fails, of course, in these tests. And if I would run distri openSUSE tests, it will probably also fail for some tests.
Could you show how would you dynamically be able to pull in dependencies, like install one package?
Yeah. So, okay, I stopped all tests and yeah, it got this finished. So if I do this, then the test should actually be able to run.
Yeah. For Osado, there is also an extra, like for higher convenience, there is a dependency package. If you have Osado, you can run OS Audience Distri openSUSE depths. That pulls in all dependencies which is necessary for that test distribution. And also to make that clear, because that's sometimes not clear because people are not sure or confusing things like what is necessary to run openQA. It will always be like that to run openQA, less is necessary than to run specific tests, because the tests can have more dependencies. You can like run any kind of test and you can develop them in Python. So there might be a lot of Python dependencies which you want to use in your test code, which might be missing. And also, if you want to develop or build openQA, then more dependencies are necessary than to just run it.
Right. The test is running, by the way. And yeah, here we see the distri openSUSE depths. And there would be OS Audience Devil, and I think that would be necessary for openQA development. Be careful to not type Control W, because that will probably close your browser window, and I have been doing that a couple of times. The good thing is if you close that code space like this, then you can reopen it and everything should be still there, but it's annoying.
Tina, one question, because everybody so people so when you are doing things with Perl development, there are multiple ways of installing dependencies and all of this. So personally, I'm using local lib to install my dependencies. So in the case that somebody is working with a new test, um, do you think do you think it would be a good idea to say like, hey, the way to add new dependencies in your code space should be this or that, or better to leave that to the person and then figure out the packaging?
So you mean if they are using a Perl module that's not yet
Exactly.
installed? Yeah. Actually, we could just try to install one, because so let's see, cpan minus is of course not installed, but yeah, we could do it so that it would actually use local lib.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
that's more or less where my head is going, like, because regardless of the of what the person will need to do, you might still need to have some setup and authoring tools. So local lib with, I don't know, cpan minus is like the way.
Dino, can you now submit the code that you changed? Create pull request.
yes. 1 second, just want to try something out. Yeah, you actually need, we need make and other stuff. So yeah. So you change the code in here, and I haven't tried this out, but it would be easy now if you know how.
Yeah, it's
To actually
That
possible
one.
using the GUI. Because I'm old, I just use the terminal, and you can also do that. And Tina, I think you know your way around that as well. So in the terminal, you could actually type something like git commit, and it will effectively do the same.
Yeah, you can also do it from the GUI, and if you commit from here, it will allow you to create a pull request.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, you just add the changes, and then you see that the last option says commit and create pull request.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure if you see that in my screen sharing. So some things are not
Yes.
visible, but yeah.
Yeah, it says commit and create pull request at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also browse some extensions, and yeah, so for sure we can make it more easy for people to actually add Perl modules and stuff. So yeah, we would need your wishes there. So if you want to try it out, and then just let us know what other things you would like to have in here. We are currently still working on some problems. So for example, this is now running on Leap, because I tried with Tumbleweed first, and I was fighting a little bit with that, and found out that it worked on every other version and on every other distribution, but not on OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. And Michele found out that Tumbleweed is missing AWK and tar, and this is needed for VS Code. And the GitHub code base, it just doesn't tell you. It's just a generic error message, and it doesn't tell you what packages it actually is missing. So we want to actually move this to Tumbleweed and by installing awk and tar. And yeah, then make it more usable for other users. It's like, for example, in the openQA repository, it would actually make sense to have a container with all the development tools installed, so you can run the openQA unit tests and actually run an openQA instance from the Git code in here, so that you can actually change openQA source code, and then you will see it in the web UI. But that's a little bit more to do, because we would have to change how the containers, how the daemons are started, and yeah. Okay. Are there any more questions? Well, if you want to try it out, I linked you the distri OpenSUSE in the chat again. So yeah, all you have to do is follow this link. So it will spawn a new code space for you, or like I said, you can use this.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's about the openQA Bootstrap. No, at the moment it's executed by default. So anytime a user starts a code space, it has the Bootstrap executed. Is it fine? Could not be leave it to the user? So like the user open the code space without the Bootstrap, and we can document how to run the Bootstrap.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's of course convenient if it is starting up in the background. So if you have to do it manually, there would be a little bit more waiting time until you get a terminal. But yeah, and
what happens to me was that giving a try in time to time, the Bootstrap script fails in the middle, and I was not able to like recover, and so the only way I get was to destroy the code space at all and start from scratch. That is always an option. It's not a problem, but no.
right. So actually, it's still in my history. So this is the post attach command, and this is actually something I forgot to say. So if you stop this code space after inactivity timeout, you would, and it actually can stop the daemons as well, then you can use openQA Bootstrap again, but with the
Which you fixed recently. So if you tried that out and before, then maybe you would run into problems. So there's new situation.
No, so currently it's still, so if you recreate a container right now, it will still run this command, openQA Bootstrap, and then it's still working, but it will do some things twice. Actually, it still works, but it will add some credentials to the openQA client config twice. But luckily it just uses the second one. But there is an openQA Bootstrap start option, which will only start the daemons. So if you ran Bootstrap before and then use this option, it will not do anything duplicate. But for this, we would have to know if we are actually creating a new CodeSpace instance or if we're recreating it from after stopping it. And that's something, yeah, we still have to figure out how we could do that. So yeah, maybe just adding a message like, hey, you can use openQA Bootstrap would be a better option. But yeah.
There are alternatives. Could you go back to the place where you actually spawned the code space initially, like in you might have it in another browser tab open still. So keep that environment just where you click the little plus icon. Because what you can do is this click on the new with options. And what you can see there is you can have a certain selection, and the second one selects openQA single instance, which is the only choice by now. But there is a possibility to provide more choices. So what we could do is also offer that choice on this level by having separate dev container configurations in parallel.
Right, you could just use, so currently we have the dev container directory with one JSON file, but we can have subdirectories instead with different files. But yeah, the single instance things should still work after recreating. And yeah, it currently does, like I said, because what the Bootstrap script does duplicate is still, it's still working, but yeah, maybe not so nice. So yeah, I guess we have to figure out what people would like to use most. Should it be started by default or optional?
And I have another question about the images that we are using. I understand how we select it, no? So there's a name in a registry. It's called a single instance. But
Yeah.
if and maybe personally, I could try to figure out where it is and where it is the Docker file. But thinking about from an external person, I would like to have a place. I mean, we should document very well where the Docker file or what is within this instance. No.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
didn't understand that.
I mean, I would like to have the link to the Docker file. If I'm a user, if I should be a user of this kind of approach, I would like to know what is running on the machine that I'm using.
And where do you expect that link?
Somewhere in the contributes documentation could be enough.
Could be the contribute or next to the dev container.json file, like a README file there. The location doesn't really matter too much, just that it's documented somewhere and easily accessible.
Wouldn't it be nice if this link would actually work and registry could tell us
Yes.
where to find it?
Exactly.
I mean, it could.
Exactly.
So you have to actually do this and then search for it. And
yeah, just above your mouse cursor, there's for comments or bug reports. Feel free to open an issue on GitHub. So you could do that. I think that's a neat idea, which is not too hard to do. And I don't think anyone has proposed that yet.
Okay. Yeah.
And even from yes. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
So that's something to do for later.
It's written in CSS mostly. Okay. Yeah, but it would be here, and yeah, we could link to that. So currently it comes actually from the openQA.
Right. So the Docker file is actually just a cache within OBS, and service references the path within the upstream openQA repository, because that's where the Docker file is defined. And also the Docker file itself in openQA is relatively easy. So there are some labels which you can see, and then line 18 is the one where we say like, okay, we add the according repository and install the necessary packages. We expose certain ports and set some variables, and then the entry point, line 28, is just a single script, which you can also, which is not directly related to the container. So there's openQA Bootstrap also as a package on Tumbleweed. On Tumbleweed, you could say super in openQA Bootstrap and run that.
I think we override it exactly. Like,
Yeah, because that actually didn't work. So if I don't override it, it just does nothing. So it doesn't. It, I guess by default it uses some VS Code specific entry point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think this is not really. I mean, it didn't complain, so
Yeah,
I guess this is ignored.
that's like a hint to whatever runs the container, which I guess in dev container doesn't make any sense, but in let's say in non-interactive deployments, that very well can be used, like Docker Swarm, Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Docker Compose as well, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to do some special things also, like the KVM device needed change owner. And also, yeah, the VNC port, the default VNC port just didn't work. There was something else running on it, but we couldn't find out what. Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other questions or suggestions? Then,
I wonder about
yeah.
what would be the next bigger steps. We talked about different alternatives that one could offer for these container definitions, more tailored environments, more integration with the IDE. We have this web approach mentioned in contribution documents where people should be able to find it, like really nice convenient link, like click here and such. We have the openQA single instance container prominently mentioned in the openQA documentation. Ina, where do you see what are potential next best steps that could be followed?
Yeah, no, I mean that there are a lot of things that we talked about now. Guess it's up to the product owner.
Yeah, but I can choose, but I'm looking forward for the ideas that people have, either what is technically possible or what's like deeply desired from a user's perspective.
I think there, and following up our conversation solely, the IDE integration and tailor environments, so that we have one for openQA, one for OS AutoInst, and then one for test distributions.
Yeah. Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can work with that. Good enough.
Okay.
Great. So are we
I think
good
I also
for
have
today?
mentioned openQA in the browser in the documentation here. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then, yeah, if you have more ideas, let us know in the chat, in ENG testing, or elsewhere. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Then I will shortly switch
Thank you,
over.
Tina.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much. I will just switch over so that we can take a look on the next topic, which is planned. So on next week, just 1 week before the OpenSUSE conference, we want to talk with Luboš wants to talk to you about the current openQA coverage of the actual OpenSUSE repositories, which became important just before the release of 15.6, which is now out. So yay, celebrate that. And after that, we have a free. It's a free slot, but it's actually during the OpenSUSE conference. So probably I will just take a note there that that's something where, you know, go to the other place, visit us in place for the OpenSUSE conference for an interesting topics also related to openQA. Santi, you want to make a short shout out what you are going to offer on the OpenSUSE conference?
Yeah, so during the OpenSUSE conference, I will be, so we will be giving a joint session actually, which is about the current state of openQA and the future. So where are we going to, with the project where are we evolving as a project? But then there is that one is on the first day of the conference at something like 9 a.m. or something like that. There is also test development crash course. Since we have enough tooling available, we don't need to go through the multiple steps on how to set openQA things in openQA, but rather jumpstart into how to develop tests and best practices maybe. And then there is a third session which is about openQA devs and users meetup as well. And basically, one of the things that I wanted to go through is through the feedback that we have recently gotten from other communities, particularly from GNOME, and some internal feedback so that we can also think about further steps in how to improve as a project, basically. And also introduce the idea of the openQA ecosystem to a broader audience that we have been talking about, so that we start painting better where is the work of the tools team envisioned and where is the QE core platform team working as well, and then how do we collaborate with the rest of the teams at SUSE and other communities. So that's more or less.
Yep. All right, makes sense. Anybody else wants to announce a topic for the OpenSUSE conference related to our scope here? No? Okay, cool. Then with that, thank you all for attending and hope to see you again next time. Bye.